Case 40. Graham versus Teledyne-Continental Motors. We find ourselves in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. Facts. James Graham was the pilot of a twin-engine Beechcraft Baron that crashed into the Sun Valley Mall in Concord, California on December 23, 1985. The accident resulted in 5 fatalities, numerous injuries, and extensive property damage. Appellant Dorothy Graham, the executrix of James Graham's estate, has been named a defendant in several lawsuits arising from this event. As charged by the Independent Safety Board Act of 1974, the NTSB began an immediate investigation into the cause of the accident. To this end, the NTSB directed that the aircraft's 2 engines be shipped to their manufacturer, Teledyne Industries. There, the agency planned to conduct a complete teardown analysis. In accordance with NTSB practice, the proposed inspection and disassembly was to be conducted by Teledyne engineers working in conjunction with and under the supervision of NTSB officials. The practice of disassembling airplane engines and other component parts on the premises of their manufacturer, with the assistance and participation of the manufacturer's personnel, grows out of the NTSB's belief that the manufacturer and its staff are best equipped to perform such functions. Each manufacturer uses somewhat different designs and specifications, requiring somewhat different tools and techniques for disassembly. The NTSB has determined that use of the manufacturer's facilities and personnel will maximize its ability to determine the cause of the accident while minimizing cost. Upon learning that the NTSB was shipping the engines to Teledyne for inspection and testing, appellant requested permission to have her technical representative participate in, or at least observe, the teardown inspection. Appellant asserted an interest because of the related civil litigation. She expressed fears about possible destructive testing and spoliation of evidence. The NTSB and Teledyne refused appellant's demands. Appellant then brought this action seeking interlocutory and permanent injunctive relief. She alleged that the NTSB examination would cause irreparable harm due to the destruction of evidence, deprive her of due process by impairing her legal rights and remedies, and take her property consisting of these rights without just compensation. The district court denied a temporary restraining order, holding that the NTSB did not abuse its discretion under applicable statutes and regulations in deciding who shall participate in the accident investigation. In addition, the district court determined that appellant had failed to establish that any constitutional right would be violated by the pending engine examination. Graham immediately appealed, challenging the denial of the temporary restraining order. A motions panel of this court enjoined appellees from conducting destructive testing pending resolution of the appeal. So what is the issue? Whether the representative of the pilot's estate be allowed to participate in or at least observe the NTSB's procedures in order to protect its interests in civil litigation arising from the accident. Holding. The denial of the temporary restraining order by the trial court is affirmed. The court remanded with instructions that judgment be entered for defendants. Reasoning. Let's first look at some terms. An executor is a legal term referring to a person named by the maker of a will or nominated by the testator to carry out the instructions of the will. Typically, the executor is the person responsible for offering the will to probate, although it is not required that they fulfill this. The executor's duties also include dispersing property to the beneficiaries as designated in the will, obtaining information of potential heirs, collecting and arranging for payments of debts of the estates, and approving or disapproving creditors' claims. The NTSB's authorizing statute provides that the board shall investigate or cause to be investigated in such detail as it shall prescribe, and determine the facts, conditions, and circumstances, and the cause or probable cause or causes of any aircraft accident. These investigations are not primarily for the purpose of determining civil liability. Indeed, the board has no authority to adjudicate the rights of private parties. The NTSB's function is to promote transportation safety by conducting independent accident investigations and by formulating safety improvement recommendations. The executrix asserted several property-based rights. Let's discuss how the court decides each of the following claims: the due process violation related to contribution or indemnity cause of action, deprivation of evidence, alteration or destruction of vital evidence, and inverse condemnation. Appellant argued that denying her access to the teardown inspection violated her right to due process. She contended that her right to contribution or indemnity from others involved in the accident is a property right that will be impaired if appellees are allowed to conduct destructive testing. According to the court, although appellant's interest in the investigation may be substantial, her exclusion does not rise to the level of a due process violation. Assuming appellant had a property interest in her contribution or indemnity cause of action, she would suffer no deprivation of that right, according to the court. At most, appellant may be deprived of certain evidence that could assist her in litigation. Courts have consistently rejected arguments that deprivation of evidence constitutes a denial of due process. In addition, the court concluded that it was highly speculative whether appellant will in fact be deprived of any evidence. While having her representative present at the teardown is one way to ascertain what went wrong, other avenues were open to appellant to obtain some substantially similar proof. Appellant would have access to the NTSB factual reports from the investigation. Moreover, although the expert testimony of board employees is inadmissible, Graham may secure the testimony of NTSB investigators concerning the factual information they gathered during the course of the accident investigation. Finally, she would presumably have access to the physical evidence itself after the engines have been released by the NTSB. Next, the appellant expressed concern that Teledyne may alter or destroy vital evidence. This case, however, is not much different from those where an adverse party retains possession of key elements of proof. Example, purloined trade secrets, documents proving fraud, or machinery involved in personal injury accidents. The presumptions and sanctions available to punish those who alter or destroy evidence must be considered sufficient to deter any misconduct, and Teledyne is no doubt aware that its handling of the materials may come under intense scrutiny. In any case, as we understand the NTSB's procedures, the engines will be handled by Teledyne employees only, under the supervision of NTSB investigators. Finally, Graham's remaining claim for a taking of property is premature. If and when she suffers a deprivation, she may bring an inverse condemnation claim under the Tucker Act. Such a suit, brought after the NTSB's investigation is completed, would avoid much of the speculation inherent in appellant's current action. It would also allow the NTSB to proceed with its investigation unencumbered by concerns extraneous to and inconsistent with the important mission entrusted it by Congress. Appellant was not the only one who could claim a legitimate interest in the NTSB's investigation. Presumably, the estates of others killed in the Sun Valley Mall crash, as well as those who were injured or suffered property damage, could assert that their rights will be impaired if their representatives are not allowed to observe the teardown. If appellant's claim were sustained on constitutional grounds, it would be difficult to exclude these others. The problem would be infinitely multiplied in a crash involving an airliner where literally hundreds of interested parties may be in the position of having some interest potentially affected by the NTSB's investigation. The NTSB would be rendered entirely ineffective in carrying out its mission if it were required to allow all of these parties access to every critical step of the investigation. The government must be allowed to carry out its responsibilities, the court noted. If private property is taken in the process, the appropriate remedy is a suit for compensation.